Namaskar. A very warm good afternoon to everyone. It indeed a very great pleasure today to take you through a historical webinar on a very auspicious day of our country. As we have walked through various journeys in Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav with different series of Azadi trails, today we are here with a webinar on Indian freedom movement in the various parts of Eastern region. Republic Day of India is celebrated on 26th of January every year to mark the day on which our constitution came into effect in 1950. After this day, our country truly became democratic and independent. The fundamental law of the country, the constitution, was enacted out of the diligence and the hard work of great freedom fighters who fought and sacrificed their lives for the independence of our country. It is a privilege and pleasure to welcome all the speakers, viewers, on behalf of Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, Eastern Region. I also would love to welcome all the senior officers of our tourism ministry and all other government officials, our very young participants from different schools, colleges and universities, students and the faculties. The webinar has been organized to connect each of the Indian citizens of India to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav on the occasion of Republic Day. We, the citizen of India, together will remember those brave heroes whose selfless sacrifice bought the independence for India. Wishing you all a very special day from incredible India. Wishing you all a happy National Tourism Day and happy Republic Day from Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, Eastern Region. I'm also very happy to announce that you can make your Republic Day memorable by taking active part in a quiz where you can win exciting prizes. Today we have five notable speakers from the Eastern region with their wonderful presentation. And at the end of each presentation, there will be five questions from each of those. You can actually win a gift hamper out of these questions. It will be fastest finger first quiz. Like you can show your typing skill on your screen by commenting the correct answer of the question. Whosoever would be answering the first correct question in the comment section, be it in YouTube or in the Facebook, will be winning the prize. And to be the winner, only one criteria, that is you need to be an Indian citizen residing in India. So what are we waiting for? Please be with us till end and win exciting prizes. And after the quiz, our team would be connecting you for your details and would be sending the gift hamper at your doorstep. So let's start our show for the day. And today, when we are starting with the show, I would love to invite our first speaker for the day, Mr. Subhankar Sengupta, who is a graduate from University of Kolkata and a regional level guide since 1990. He is a pioneer in cruise tourism in West Bengal, leading the first ever river cruise on the Ganges. He leads special interest tours all over the country in textile, music, culinary, and many more. He also authored a book for the children on revolutionary Master Surya Singh. He was associated with several documentary films made for the National Geography and Discovery Channel. Mr. Sengupta is now presently engaged in the preservation of traditional art and textile. Today, when we are celebrating our 73rd Republic Day, he will take us to the era of Indian freedom movement and Andaman Nicobar Island. Patriotic struggle fought bravely and selflessly by numerous freedom fighters. The cellular jail or the Kala Pani bears the testimony in the inhuman torture meted out to our brave fighters. Today, Mr. Sengupta will be taking us to Andaman to the cellular jail as he has a special connection with Andaman as his very person from his family, is among the revolutionaries exiled into cellular jail. Here I welcome Mr. Subhankar Sengupta. Subhankar ji, welcome to the show.
নমস্কার everybody. শুভ প্রজাতন্ত্র দিবসের শুভেচ্ছা সবাইকে. I welcome you on this very auspicious occasion of the Republic Day of our motherland. We also welcome you in the Tourism Day, and I appreciate this connection of the Tourism Department to initiate a series of webinars and promotional videos for the sacrifices of the millions who brought us our freedom today. We are enjoying today, we are celebrating today because of the sacrifice of the millions of unsung heroes. I'm going to share with you today the stories of a few lesser known revolutionaries and freedom fighters who had to perish in the Andaman's jails. I'm going to present you the story of Andamans. Thank you for having me here. Here is my slides. Andaman, the Indian Bastille. I got this particular phrase from a book written by a man who was himself in the Andamans. And why it is considered as the Bastille of India? Because it is the Andaman whose fall actually paved in the way of the freedom of our beloved motherland, and exactly the way the Bastille provoked the French Revolution and established the French Republic as a result. So let us go to Andaman, the Indian Bastille. Andaman and Nicobar Islands had a series of influx of people, but there was three great migrations started from the remote history when, due to the plate distribution, the geological plate distribution, Andaman archipelago was drifted away from the mainland some 100,000 years ago. And people inhabited this island around 60,000 years ago. If we consider this as the first group of people in the Andamans or the first settlement, the next settlement has to wait for thousands of years. And we see a group of explorers from Europe landing in the islands of Andaman and Nicobar. This all started in the 18th century with the Dutch East India Company landing in the Andaman archipelago, wanted to use it as a naval base. However, things started changing rapidly in India, in the mainland, during the same period of time. If you remember that it is the fall of the Mughal which gave the way to the rise of the Europeans. And 1787, a group of British East India Company men, they thought of using the archipelago for both military as well as penal settlement. However, in 1789, please remember this date, the 1789, the British East India Company for the first time officially declared Andaman archipelago as the first penal colony by exiling 270 convicts from mainland Indian subcontinent. Of these 270 convicts were mostly European and Eurasian. Today we call them Anglo-Indians. And they took over to clear the forest and establish the settlements in the form of little huts in the middle or the higher areas of the islands. The first of such island which was settled was the Chatham Island. Today it is known as the largest sawmill in Asia. The Chatham sawmill is one of the tourist attractions. From there, they moved on to the Ross Island, to the Viper Island, and finally to the Port Blair. However, this was not taken very kindly by the indigenous population of Andamans, and the skirmishes went on and on. Meanwhile, things in Indian history was changing very quick and rapidly towards a all growing, overwhelming administration by the East India Company. In 1757, that there was a great revolt. We call this as the first battle for Indian independence, the Sipahi Mutiny, which started in Calcutta and then spread all over the northern India, went across the present boundary of northern India, and continued for a few months. But before that, there was also another movement called the Wahhabi, which started this almost the same period and continued for several years. So in 1857, in the Ross Island, the British East India Company built for the first time a prison to keep political prisoners. And the people who were caught in the battles of the Sipahi Mutiny or the Wahhabi activists were exiled in this island. They were chained, they were forced to build their own prison. It is a very interesting part of the history that it's a prison made by the prison for the prison, by the prisoners and for the prisoners. It is during this time in 1858, some 8,000 altogether prisoners were sent to the various islands of the archipelago. In 1859, things started moving a little bit different ways. In between, a lot of convicts or prisoners tried to escape the island, and they mostly perished, except one person. Dudnath Tiwari, a man from Uttar Pradesh, working for the Punjab regiment of the East India Company, was exiled in Andaman, and he, along with 233 other prisoners, tried to escape in small canoes into the sea. 87 of them was recaptured by the British forces and was hanged to death in the Andaman Islands, and a few of them were unnoticed. Dudnath Tiwari escaped and was saved by the indigenous population. He learned their language, he married a girl of the indigenous community, and transformed himself like an indigenous person. However, in the next year, in 1859, when the indigenous populations, the great Andamanis, the Jaruas, the Onges, they decided to attack the British colony, Mr. Tiwari was a front runner. He defected the indigenous people and joined the British Army. That is a sad part of the history of Andaman. However, that was the valiant war fought by the indigenous population for their freedom, and Andaman becomes the first altar of the national freedom of India. These were the islands, and the people were thrown from different part of the country in different badges brought in by the ships in a very inhuman conditions. I don't want to expose all those gory stories about how tortures were meant to these people, but it is recorded well in different part. After the Battle of Aberdeen, a lot of lessons were learned. The British East India Company understood the necessity of founding a proper prison, and the prisoners of the Sipahi Mutiny, they started building the prisons, as you see here, in the Ross Island, in the Viper Island. In 1872, another great incident happened in the Andamans. When the Viceroy of India, meanwhile, the authority or the governance of the country transferred from the East India Company to the British government, and the governor generals replaced by the viceroys. Viceroy Lord Mayo visited Andamans in 1872, and you see this man, a Pathan, who was imprisoned in the Andamans, killed Lord Mayo. This is another chapter of the history of the freedom struggle. This time, the British authority got more alarmed about the situation of the prisoners. They would not risk to keep the prisoners in the open. Earlier, they used to make small hutments for the prisoners, which were called the tapus. And the tapu would be a very big sail, like a big cottage, built on bamboo stilts and the bamboo fencings and the thatch roof. And the prisoners were all chained so that they could not escape alone. But now they felt the necessity of founding a, a kind of a prison which is unpenetrable, which cannot be broken. And so they used that panopticon philosophy of the British philosopher Bentham, Jeremy Bentham, planned for a panopticon, and Andaman jail was started to begin in 1896. It took 10 years to complete this prison, as you see here, with 7 wings. Each wing had 3 floors. Each floor has several cells, and each cell was just 4.5 meter by 2.5 meter, with only hole for the air to pass situated at the height of 3 meter. It is in this prison that the great episode of India's national freedom would take place in the days to come. The prison cells inside was all attached in a row, and it is opened to a corridor, and this corridor would be guarded by the convicts who were not political prisoners. So what a surprise, what a thing it is that the political prisoners were guarded by the ordinary prisoners. They call them the warders or the interns. The political prisoners, the first gang of the political prisoners, were sent in 1909. In 1909, you know the famous Muraripukur bomb blast case in Calcutta, which resulted in the conviction of Sri Aurobindo, among with other revolutionary leaders. After the great effort of Deshabandhu Chittaranjan Das, Sri Aurobindo was released, but that was not all for the other revolutionaries. So Barin Ghosh and 7 others of his comrades, Upendranath Bandyopadhyay, Abhinash Bhattacharya, and all, were put on MV Maharaja, the ship to take them to Andamans. They joined in the middle by 2 more convicts from Dhaka of the Anushilan Samiti, Mr. Pulin Das and Suresh Chandra Sengupta. In 1909 to 1921, they were imprisoned in this particular panopticon. Because of the cells, it is called the cellular jail. There used to be 696 cells, each one for a solitary prisoner. It's built in such a way that one prisoner cannot see the others in whatsoever direction, because these wings are arranged in a dial-like situation, like a spoke of a motorcycle, and radially arranged with a center fitted with a watchtower. And they were the great guests of the British. So they were very well looked after. You can see in these pictures. They were forced to tie into a T rod and left there for the whole day, suffering into the scorching sun without a drop of water. Or they would be hanged by tying their hands on a rope and their feet placed on two pieces of bamboo poles. A little movement from there would let them fall into the ground with their hands separated from the body. They would be pushed, used like the bullocks in an oil grinding mill, and they would be given the task to pound 3,000 liters of oil in a day, or 5,000 coconuts to be spilled over by just hand pounding without any tools. So these were the conditions. They were not allowed to wear any dress. Here you can see they're using dresses because it's a museum pictures. But during those days, they were not allowed to use anything else than a loincloth all around their body. And they will be always chained. They were taken outside the prison only when they were supposed to work to reclaim the forest, to make the constructions of the road or other buildings. So all that we see today in Andamans were built at the toil and sweat of these people who wanted to make their country free. They used to be sent sometimes, they call it a free days. They would be sent into a smaller islands called tapu. The tapus were actually a small islands built with some sort of accommodation, a thatched roof, and they would be taken to the tapu. Around the tapu would be the vegetable ground and the fruit grounds grown by the prisoners for the masters living in the Andamans. It is surprising that in the early days of the Andaman prisons, especially the cellular jail, all the work was done by the prisoners and they were paid. So generous was the British government that they used to pay them 8 anna a month for their toil 24 hours a day. And they could actually save the money if not given away by the bribes to get a little bit of vegetable in excess of the food diet that they were supplied in the prison cells. And what was the diet? A very, very comfortable diet in those days. The first thing in the morning is a breakfast. They would wake up in the morning at 5 o'clock with a bell ringing in the jail, and they would all be out to use the toilets, 5 toilets for each wing. Each wing will have at least about 200 cells. And so the 5 toilets would be used within 1 hour time. And once they are done, they would be sent to a file. In the file, they will be served with the very nutritious breakfast, lopsi. Today, a lot of people use lopsis as a cuisine or culinary specialty. But if you know what the lopsis were made of in those days, then you probably stay away from taking this food. These lopsis were actually the rotten rice boiled like okayu and given it with a pinch of salt, or sometimes without salt. That is the breakfast. From 10 o'clock till 6 o'clock, they had to work. The 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock, they will be clearing the forest, they will be filling up the sea or the backwaters, or break the logs, and all the things that the British masters, in most of the cases, were also the convicts of European origin. And that was the time they would spend. In 1921, this group of people was joined by many more. You know the 1929 Lahore conspiracy case. where Shahid Bhagat Singh was martyred, and his comrades, they were thrown into this prison. Mahavir Singh, Vijay Sinha were among them. And they found that in place of being feared death, they would actually love to be sent to the Andamans in this time, because they would soon meet the other revolutionary group from Bengal of the famous Chattogram Astragar or the Chittagong Armed Rebellion under the leadership of great Master the Surya Sen. Master Dar's comrades Ganesh Ghosh, Mohit Maitro, Ananta Sinha, and Sudhanshu Das Gupta were also sent along this. 67 people boarded a small ship in Calcutta and landed in the Andaman cellular jail. They'd never expect that by the time they enter into the prison, they would hear Bande Mataram. Who told the prisoners that the new group of prisoners coming in? They got somehow the news that the new inmates are coming, and the prisoners inside were ready to welcome them with the Bande Mataram. Some of them were not so lucky to come back to the mainland again and had to embrace these little hanging ropes, three of them together, so that they can hang three persons at a time. And the steps, the white steps, are the steps to our freedom, which led to the death of several of our forefathers. And this jail and this prison on the right, it's called the confinement cell. The persons who will be killed the next morning would be kept here the night before. And before the 5 o'clock bell rings for the toilet, they will be hanged. And the prisoners can see their dead bodies sometimes taken away like a big load of things and not people. For our today, they gave their days of the young time. Look at Mohit Moitro, a boy of just 17 years. He was in the prison alongside the famous Mahavir Singh, Vijay Sinha, Ganesh Ghosh, Ananta Sinha, and others. In 1932, the prisoners decided that enough is enough. They must be given the due respect of a political prisoner, and they went on the hunger strike. The prisoners did this many a times beforehand, but every time they were given some assurance by the authority, and then they had to leave. But this time they decided to go on strike till death. And Mohit Moitro, Mahavir Singh, and Kishore Mohan was the first three martyrs at this phase. You know how they were killed? They tried to break their hunger strike by forcing them food through the pipes which were forced into their mouth. And Mahavir Singh, who is a huge man who knew the techniques because they have learned the technique of the fasting unto death while in the Lahore jail with the famous Jatin Das, who gave his life after 69 days of continuous hunger strike. But Mahavir Singh was taken to the floor by 6 Pathan guards, and they forced the feeding tube into his mouth. He closed his mouth by his tongue, and so they kept on forcing until it reaches his lung. His lung was full with milk. So was Mohit Moitro's and Kishore Mohan's. And they did not resist. They could only produce the last word, Bande Mataram. So the prisoners, everybody now joined the hunger strike, continued until about 5 years in a relay system, one after another, waves after waves of hunger strikes finally ended on 28th August 1937, I beg your pardon. On the 28th August of 1937, they received a telegram from none else than Mahatma Gandhi. 8 days before that, they received the first telegram from the mainland written by the great poet Rabindranath Tagore, asking them to give up their resistance because the country needed them. After 8 days, Mahatma Gandhi sent the same repeated appeal, and this time the revolutionaries decided to close their hunger strike, and the British authority decided to bring back all the prisoners into the mainland. In this slide, you'll see one lady, Kalpana Dotto. She was also sentenced exile in Andamans, and she was about to be sent to Andaman. But Rabindranath Tagore wrote a personal letter to the authority, and she was excused but put into a solitary prison in the Alipur Central Jail instead. So she would become the only woman freedom fighter in cellular jail. Though there were women prisoners, but none of them were political prisoners. Saying that, I would like you all to know that we only had the names of the political prisoners described by the British, and there were thousands others who were not given the status of political prisoners, yet they were also the freedom fighters, and not always the other way around. Lot of convicts, they perished into the jail. Lot of them died into the adverse situations. We had gathered a list of over 585 people officially declared as the martyrs, as the incarnated as the prisoners in the cellular jail, of which 340 were from Bengal alone. This continued after the great refusal of the great retreat by the freedom fighters. In 1942, the British decided by this time that they must go out of the Port Blair. They must go out of the Andamans because they were fearing an attack from the Japanese Allied force. In 1942, the Indian National Army, Azadi Hind Fauj, took control of Andamans. On the 30th of December, 1943, nobody else than Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose landed in Andamans and declared the first independent Indian government in the mainland India and established the Azad Hind government in the Andamans. Today, we are celebrating the Republic Day because of the sacrifices of these people. The Andaman archipelago is the mute spectator and storyteller of this freedom movement of the country. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram. I hope by now you have prepared yourself for the questions. As Bratati has pointed out, that you need to answer these questions, and the first person to answer the questions will be awarded by the Department of Tourism, Government of India. So my first question comes: when did the first penal colony start in the Andamans? When did the first penal colony start in the Andamans? The second question: why was the cellular jail named such? If you remember, I told in the beginning, why was the cellular jail named such? Why was cellular jail called cellular jail? Third question, please share your understanding on what you have gathered. Who requested the freedom fighters in the cellular jail to withdraw their historic hunger strike in 1937? Hope you remember these great personalities who had enough control over the freedom fighters across the country to request them to give up their hunger strike in 1937. Please name the person who requested. And last but not the least, share your understanding about where was the first Indian tricolor flag hoisted in the Andamans. The last question would be, what were the names given to Andaman and Nicobar by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose? He renamed the Andaman and Nicobar Islands after he took control and the Azadi government was founded. So he named Andaman and Nicobar Islands into two different names. You have to name these two names given by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Thank you for having me here. Bande Mataram. Namaskar to everybody. Over to Bratati.
Thank you so much, Mr. Subhankar Sengupta. It was a wonderful session. What could be better than this to celebrate the 26th of January, to remember with a remembrance of those brave heroes? And I'm pretty sure, of course, we must have got five winners for the five questions for this section of the quiz. Now be ready, whoever has not even answered yet. Now we are moving forward with another section where you will get another chance to write your correct answer in the comment box. When we talk about the Indian independence, Bihar played a major role in Indian independence struggle. Occasionally, revolts against British took place in many times being the Ho revolt of 1820 or maybe the uprising of 1831. And we should not forget Bihar's contribution towards the Indian Mutiny of 1857. It is a motherland of many brave heroes of our freedom. So here we welcome Mr. Niraj Kumar Singh, an experienced professional guide from Nalanda, Bihar, who has worked with many well-established tour companies and GMCs. He has led many special interest groups, FITs, and tours based on religion, culture, art, architecture, and many more. Niraj has been a Government of India Ministry of Tourism guide since 2014, and before that, he was working with many well-known tour companies like Sita India and many more. He has done his graduation in travel and tourism from Magad University, Bodh Gaya, and completed his master's from IGNOU. Today, Niraj will take us through the different stories of brave heroes of our country from Bihar. Niraj, the screen is yours.
Yeah. Okay. Hello. Namaste. Good afternoon and pranam. A very warm greetings to everyone who are listening us of the Republic Day and National Tourism Day. So today I would start with our major freedom fighters from Bihar. In this session, I will talk about few of the more eminent and lesser known freedom fighters who were from Bihar. There are a number of them, but it's not easy to cover everyone. But I will try my best to at least 6 or 7 freedom fighters I will cover in this session. So Bihar roles in India's successful struggle for freedom has been highly significant and is inspiring. So, if we talk about Bihar involvement in the freedom fighters, we first of all I will start with Kumar Singh. Kumar Singh, just Bir Kuwar Singh. So Bir Kuwar Singh or Babu Bir Kuwar Singh was popularly he was known as, and he was born in Jagdishpur, which is in Bhojpur region of Bihar. And Kuwar Singh led the rebellion in Bihar. In 1857, when the first freedoms struggle was started against the Britishers. So he assumed command of the soldiers who had revolted at Danapur on 5th July 1857. So 5 days later, he occupied the area of Ara, which is the district headquarters. So Major Vincent Eyre relieved the town on 3rd August and defeated Kumar Singh force and destroyed Jagdishpur badly. In Kumar Singh left his ancestor village after that and reached Lucknow in December 1857. Kumar Singh was nearly 80 and in failing health when he was called upon to take up arms. He gave a good fight and harried British forces for nearly a year and remained invincible uh, until the end. He was an expert in the art of guerrilla warfare, and his tactics left the British, puzzled all the time. During the rebellion, his army had to cross the Ganges River, and Douglas' army began to shoot at their boat. One of the bullets shattered Kumar Singh's left wrist, and Kumar Singh felt that his hand has become useless and that there was the additional risk of infection due to the bullet shot. So he drew his sword and cut off his left hand and you know left hand and offered it to the Mother Ganges. In March 1858, he occupied Azamgarh. However, he had to leave the place soon, and persuaded by Brigadier Douglas, he retreated toward his hometown in Ara, and on April 23rd, 1858, he defeated the force of a British East India Company led by Le Grand, and he had a victory near Jagdishpur over the British Army force. And just 3 days after that war, on 26th April 1858, he died in his village. He is mentioned in many number of Bhojpuri folk songs and stories still today as a hero who fought against the British uh, operation that makes him still alive today. And one of the most popular folk songs is still, sung in the Bhojpuri region of Bihar. Though I am not, my mother tongue is not Bhojpuri, but I will try to just sing a few line of that popular song, where you will find Kumar Singh is still alive in this folk song. अब छोड़ रे फिरंगिया हमार देशवा लूट पाट कहिले तुम्ही मजवा उड़े कैलस देश पर जुलुम जोर शहर गांव लूटी फूकी दिहल फिरंगिया सुनी सुनी कुंवर के हृदया लागल अगिया अब छोड़ रे फिरंगिया हमार देशवा. So such was the aura of Kumar Singh, who led the first war of independence from Bihar. So now I'm very hopeful that most of you must have read about Veer Kumar Singh, and many more stories were there. But I will take to you on another story. Just I will talk about Champaran movement, because if you come to Bihar and if you talk about freedom struggle movement, Champar was one of the major movement which was happened under the colonial era, and many tenant farmers forced to grow some indigo on a portion of their land as a condition of their tenancy, and this indigo was used to make a dye. So the German had invented a cheaper artificial dye, so the demand for indigo fell down, even though some tenants have to pay more rent in return. So many tenants allowed alleged that the landlord had used strong arm tactics to, collect illegal cases and to extort them in other way. So this issue was highlighted by a number of lawyer politicians, and there had also been a commission of inquiry set by the Britishers, but all were in vain. So there was a person called Kumar Shukla, who was actually from Champaran, and he was also a lawyer, and Rajkumar Shukla was a money lender also who also owned some land and he persuaded Gandhiji many times when he met Gandhiji to go to Champaran, and thus the Champaran Satyagraha began. And Gandhiji arrived in Champaran on 10th April 1917, and with a team of eminent lawyers like the great Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who was from Bihar, and Braj Kishore Prasad, Anugrah Narayan Sinha, all were from Bihar, and Ramnavi Prasad, and some more eminent lawyer. They came to Champaran, and Gandhiji was arrested after 3 days by the police. I think on 16th of April he was arrested in 1917 on the charge of creating unrest and ordered to leave the province. When asked by Magistrate George Chander at the Motihari District Court on 18th of April, and he asked to pay Gandhiji rupees 100 rupees as a penalty also, but Gandhiji humbly refused, and hundreds of and thousands of people who gathered at the Motihari District Court and protested and rallied to outside the court, demanding the release of Gandhiji, which the court unwillingly did it, and the case was subsequently withdrawn by the British government, and thus the Champaran Satyagraha, India's first civil disobedience movement, was, I would say, successfully launched by Gandhiji. So that was a turning point in the India's struggle of independence during that time, and Gandhiji, who led after that so many successful satyagrahas in different part of India. So next, I will talk about, of course, the first president of Republic of India. Today we are celebrating the 73rd Republic Day. So India's first president was from Bihar, so Dr. Rajendra Prasad. So he was a brilliant scholar, teacher, and a freedom fighter. And finally, of course, he became the first president of Republic of India. And he was extremely a good writer also. So when he was a student at a presidency college in Calcutta, an examiner looking at his exam sheet once has said that the examinee is better than the examiner. So this is very popular phrase, is still used today. And Dr. Rajendra Prasad was known for his great historic moment when the Indian Constitution was going to come in force. Dr. Rajendra Prasad attended the cremation of his sister just after the commencement of the Constitution on 25th January 1950. So a day ahead of this historic moment when the Indian Constitution was going to come into force, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, attended the founding ceremony of the cremation of her sister. So Dr. Rajendra Prasad was born on 3rd December 1884 in Jaradai, which is a small village in Siwan district of Bihar. And his early education was at district schools in Chhapra. And Dr. Rajendra Prasad was professor of English at a college in Bihar, but later he pursued a degree of law. Uh, Later, he did his doctorate of law from Allahabad University, and Dr. Rajendra Prasad was the first president of India, as I said, from 1950 to 1962. And after being the president for two terms, he stepped away from the highest post in 1962 because of ill health. Ill health, and his his role in the India's independent movement became very important, especially his association with the Mahatma Gandhi. He he also, he met Mahatma Gandhi in 1917 or so, and he also very much inspired by the Gandhi's philosophies. So he also responded the call of Gandhi to boycott the Western educational establishment, especially by asking his son Mrityunjaya Prasad, I guess his son name, to drop out of his studies and enroll himself in Bihar Vidyapeeth, an institution which was built by him along with his colleague in Patna, which is a traditional Indian model of education, which is still running today, Bihar Vidyapeeth. And he was deeply influenced by Mahatma Gandhi and went to jail during the Salt Satyagraha, during the Quit India movement, and he played a big role in making the Indian constitution, of course. Dr. Rajendra Prasad is popularly known as the Desh Ratna, and he's also called the second Gandhi of India. He was awarded the highest civilian award called Bharat Ratna in 1962. Dr. Rajendra Prasad died on 28 February 1963 at the age of 78 in Patna. So that was Rajendra Prasad, and now I will speak a bit about Sri Krishna Singh. He's also a very eminent, very tall, freedom fighter from Bihar. He's popularly known as Bihar Keshari, and he was also the first chief minister of Bihar, and he is also the modern, architect of modern Bihar, I would say. So, next couple of minutes, I will talk about Sri Krishna Singh, who was a modern leader of social justice of Bihar, who served, as I said, first chief minister of Bihar till his last breath. And he was born on 21st October 1887 in Nawada district of Bihar. He has been among the leading freedom fighter from Bihar, and he was known as Bihar Kesari because of his lion-like roar when he rose to address the masses. His close friend and a prominent Gandhian, Dr. Anugrah Narayan Singh, who wrote an essay for him titled as Mere Siri Babu. So he wrote that since 1921, the history of Bihar has been the history of the life of Sri Krishna Singh. So that's a big statement given by Dr. Anugrah Narayan Singh about Krishna Singh. The first meeting of Sri Krishna Singh with Mahatma Gandhi was in 1911, and inspired by his idea, Sri Krishna Singh became his follower, Gandhiji's follower. He went to jail first time in 1912, and he underwent different terms of imprisonment for about 8 years, and during the freedom is now during the freedom fighting, and he played an important role in Salt Satyagraha uh, with Gandhiji. In 1937, he was elected as the member of Central Assembly as well as Bihar Assembly. During his tenure, the Jamandari system was ended, and he was the first chief minister in India who, abolished this Jamindari system. Uh, and he also led or allowed the entry of Dalit people to the famous Badhanath Mandir, which is in Devghar. So, and this was, again reflecting his commitment to upliftment and the social empowerment for the Dalit. So he also disagreed with the governor on the issue of the release of political prisoner and resigned because of that. But the governor had to give up finally, and Sri Krishna Singh resumed his office yet again, and he resigned in 1939 over the question of involving India in the Second World War without the consent of the Indian people. So his contribution for Bihar, particularly Bihar, and especially for the Dalit upliftment, was immensely praised even today by the people of Bihar. Now I will talk about another very interesting, story about this statue you can see on the screen, and that's remembering the seventh son of Bihar who died defending the tricolor. So there are seven statues, and all the name of those seven student, actually they were student. Those seven student names are written, and their class when they were shot dead by the Britishers when they were going to hoist the national flag. So all were dead. So just a couple of minutes I will talk about them also. So it was the morning of 11th August 1942 when the Quit India movement started by Gandhiji. So 3 days after the Quit India movement was launched, at the time over 6,000 students rushed into the gate of the erstwhile Patna Secretariat, and they bore no arm and had a singular objective to hoist the national flag on the building of the Secretariat without causing any damage, neither to lives nor the public property. So it was also a reaction to the imprisonment of eminent Gandhian Dr. Anugrah Narayan Singh when he tried to unfurl the national flag in Patna. So, but the British were firm in their resolve to sabotage the movement, to stop the movement, and the military police under the command of District Magistrate W.G. Archer. W.G. Archer was tasked with nipping the movement in the building. The force tried to keep the student from reaching the secretariat until 2 p.m. in the 2 p.m. But despite the resistance, the student marched on, and Archer knew their strength was unmatched. So he decided to open fire, and they wanted to kill uh, the bearer, all the student, and that was happened. In the open fire, all the seven students were gunned down, and they they passed the flag. In that, one by one, they were trying to pass the flag so that one can enter into the campus of the secretariat building, and anyhow they hoist the flag. But unfortunately, they all seven were gunned down, and while all of them were martyred in the name of the flag they wanted to hoist at the top of the secretariat. So about seven students whose names is still displaying on that slide. You can read which class they were from and which part of Bihar they were from. And finally, all those seven were lying dead in front of that secretariat building. And there was eighth person whose name was Ram Krishna Sinha, who was actually from a college, who later on hoisted the flag on the secretariat building. While you can see these all seven were hardly 17-year-old student studying in class 9 or 10. So this these seven young men were became the symbol of new India and was unafraid and revealed in its freedom. So they were very lesser known people who were fought against the Britishers. So still this statue can be seen in Patna when you visit the old Secretariat building area. Now Bihar, the contribution to the Indian freedom struggle was immense, and the women's power participation was actively in the freedom struggle and shouldered the responsibility of social service at the call of Mahatma Gandhi. So this is the picture of Prabhavati Devi Narayan. So she was a wife of a very eminent, freedom fighter, and from Bihar. His name was Jai Prakash Narayan. So she's the wife. She was the wife of Jai Prakash Narayan, and on the call of Gandhiji, lots of women freedom fighters were also involved in those era, and many educated families allowed women to participate in this public event, and women started participating in public meeting of Gandhiji during the Bihar tour. And the natural outcome of this result in the participation of women in political and social reform, it gave inspirations to the freedom struggles. Prabhavati Devi Narayan was an Indian freedom fighter from Bihar who was, as I said, married to very eminent freedom fighter Sri Jayaprakash Narayan, and Jayaprakash Narayan advised her to study and learn weaving the charkha. The couple jointly decided not to have any children until the country was free from foreign hand, and she was arrested in Lucknow once in 1932 during the call of a boycott of foreign goods. She was, she established Mahila Charkha Samiti at Patna to involve, deserted and abandoned women in the charkha for the spinning wheel movement on the Gandhiji model. When Quit India movement started, she was arrested and sent to Bhagalpur jail. And the last few years were especially painful to her as she was found to be suffering from advanced cancer, and she died in 1975 on the 15th of April in Patna. So my last slide will be on another very lesser known woman freedom fighter, Tara Rani Srivastav. So Tara Rani Srivastav was born in a very simple family in Saran district of Bihar, and she was married to Fulbendu Babu, who was also a freedom fighter from Bihar. So she used to organize women in and around her village and accompanied her husband on protest march against the colonial rule. She joined the Quit India movement of Gandhiji in 1942 and regulated protest and planned to raise the national flag on the roof of Siwan police station. They managed to gather a crowd and began their march toward the Siwan police station, shouting "Inqilab." When they were marching toward them, the police started lathi charge, and when the protest could not be controlled by the police, uh, they started firing. So Fulvendu Babu was hit and fell down to the ground, and Tara bandaged him with the help of her sari and continued to lead the crowd toward the station, shouting "Inqilab" while holding the national flag in her hand. And her husband died on that course. And when Tara came back, but she continued to support the freedom struggle. Apart from these there were a number of women freedom fighters from Bihar, like Tarakeshwari Sinha, Ram Pyari Devi, and Bindyavasini Devi. So many more lesser known freedom fighters who fought for whole life to make India free from the hands of British. So those are the seven eminent and lesser known freedom fighters from Bihar. So now I will put some questions, and it will be like a quiz competition, as already said by Bratati. And here in this quiz competition, anybody who are the resident of this Indian India, residing in India, so any Indian citizen can participate here. I will put five questions. So this is the question number one. Who led the Indian Rebellion of 1857 in Bihar? So the four options are Rani Lakshmibai, Bir Kuwar Singh, Tatya Tope, and Mangal Pandey. So this is open. Now you can put your answer in your comment box with your details of your email ID. And I said that who will be the winner will get lots of exciting prizes. So now, next question is, who is known as Bihar Kesari? So I hope during my course of talk, you must have. Now, number A, Dr. Rajan Prasad, B. Jaya Prakash Narayan, Sri Krishna Singh, D. Anugrah Narayan Sinha. So that's you have to answer. Now we can move to question number 3. Which was the first satyagraha led by Gandhiji in India? A. Salt Satyagraha, B. Kheda Satyagraha, C. Champaran Satyagraha, and D. Baradoli Satyagraha. Question 4. Who is known as Desh Ratna? Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, B. Mahatma Gandhi, C. Subhash Chandra Bose, or D. Rajendra Prasad, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. So the last and final question of mine will be Mahila Charka Samiti, the first women institution set up in Bihar. So who set it? Number 1, Tara Rani Srivastava, B. Vidyavansi Devi, C. Prabhavati Devi, and Ram Pyari Devi. So these are the 4 options. So I hope you like that session, this session I hope, and Jai Hind, and wish you all the best for these 5 questions, and happy Republic Day once again. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Niraj. It was a wonderful presentation, and I must mention the role of women from Bihar in freedom movement. We should remember. So that was a wonderful presentation by Niraj Singh from Bihar. And after this, we are moving on to Jharkhand. Jharkhand played a significant role in the Indian freedom movement. Jharkhand, being an industrial place, was always vulnerable for exploitation by the Britishers. But at the same time, it has also offered a lot to the Indian freedom movement. Today, Mr. Rakesh Ranjan Mishra, a regional level guide from Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, will represent Jharkhand. Mr. Rakesh Ranjan Mishra has completed his master degree from Magad University, Bodh Gaya in social science. He is an approved tourist guide from Ministry of Tourism for last 16 years. He has immense experience of guiding the Buddhist sites of the region. He has also guided in Buddha Parikrama train, which was launched with collaboration of IRCTC and ITBC. Many times, he has guided the Buddhist sectors for the students of Lincoln University in UK through a Bihar-based NGO called People First. Today, he will be presenting the brave stories of freedom fighters from Jharkhand. Rakesh ji, please welcome to the show.
हाय नमस्ते। राष्ट्रीय पर्यटन दिवस की बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं एंड कॉन्ग्रेचुलेशन for 73rd anniversary of our Indian Republic. जोहार झारखंड। बलिदानों का सपना जब सच हुआ, देश तभी आजाद हुआ। आज सलाम करे उन वीरों को जिनके शहादत से देश मेरा गणतंत्र हुआ। On the occasion of celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, I am going to share and present you some of great personality from Jharkhand, whose participation for Indian independence was remarkable and played the vital role in Indian independence. In this series, I would like to share the story of Baba Tilka Manjhi, Buddhu Bhagat.
Rakesh, I will interrupt you. I'm really sorry. I think our second device is on at your back. So if you can mute that other device because we are getting an echo sound. Either you can keep the other device far or maybe you can mute it. Thank you so much.
I think some problem in my presentation. I don't know because I was not very much familiar with the computer, but as I am a guide, so bring the smile on your faces and come to explore our brave ancestors from Jharkhand. Of course, as I told you, I will explore the story of Baba Tilka Manjhi, Buddhu Bhagat, Sidho Kanhu, Fulo Manjhi, and of course, Bhagwan Birsa Munda. Yeah, thank you. The presentation is on my screen. Jharkhand. Actually, Jharkhand is the land of forest, and most of rebellion made for save the forest and land, oppose the taxation on land, and the first rebellion in Jharkhand for independence and oppose the British India Company even before the rebellion of Mangal Pandey. And you know, everybody, Baba Tilka Manjhi was born in 11th February 1750, I mean 18th century. So as I promise you, come with me and explore the journey of Indian independence rebellion in 18th centuries, where Baba Tilka Manjhi was born on 11th February 1750 in Sultanganj. He was born in a small village called Tilakpur. And you know, he belonged to Santhal family. Tilka lived in the shadow of forest, civilization, and hunted wild animal, workout wrestling, climbing on the big tree, walking in the valleys, playing with wild animals, roaring in the wild forest, river, etc., where his daily routine of life, wildlife, had made him fearless and brave. Tilka Manjhi was an Indian freedom. Tilka Manjhi was an Indian freedom fighter. I can say the first Adivasi leaders from Pahadia, I mean the people from Heel community, took up arms against the British in 1784, around 70 years before the Mangal Pandey. He organized the Adivasi to form an armed group to fight against the resources grabbing and exploitation of British. The year 1784 is considered as the first armed rebellion against the British and was the beginning of Pahadia. And later on, this resulted in the minimum chances to negotiate between the local Jamidar and Santhala village. Baba Tilka Manjhi attacked the British commissioner and Raj Mahal with a gulel. I think many of our audience is well known about the gulel. If you will explore the tribal tourism, you will see the gulela. Gulela is a weapon of similar to slingshot, and that's you can see on my slide. And the first British officers was killed by the gulel by Baba Tilka Manjhi. His name was Augustine Cleveland. So you can say the first British officer, first East India Company officer was killed during the Indian Rebellion was Augustine Cleveland, and by the Baba Tilka Manjhi, who was injured by the gulel, later on retired. The British surrounded the Tilapur forest from which he operated, but he and his men held them at bay for several weeks. When he finally caught in 1784, he was tied to the tail of horses and dragged all the way to the collector resident at Bhagalpur, where he injured body was hung from a banyan tree in 13th January 1785. It is said that after Mansi was captured, he was tied to the four horses and dragged up to the Bhagalpur, even after dragged for miles. But this great fighter was still alive, and his body may have been soaked in blood, but his mind was lame. Tilka was the first person. Tilka was the first person who fought against the British to free India from slavery, and Tilka will always be remembered eternally as a son of Mother India, and that's the Baba Tilka Manji was. You can see that on my slides. Tilka Andolan was 1783 to 85, and the place where he was hanged on a banyan tree. And the next, but very interesting, our second great personalities was Baba Buddhu Bhagat. Baba Buddhu Bhagat was an Indian freedom fighter. He had led guerrilla warfare against British. He was leader of Kola Rebellion in 1831. He was born in 1792 in Silagai village of Chanho block in Ranchi district in British India. He was born into an Oraon farmer family. Oraon is a tribal family. He grew up seeing cruelty of forces of Jamidara and British. He had been seeing how ripen crop they had taken away by force of Jamidars and British. The poor family were not getting enough food even. He trained his friends for guerrilla war. And Buddhu Bhagat advised people to fight British. He had led guerrilla warfare against British. British announced reward to Court Buddha Bhagat. British faced stiff resistance from followers of Buddha Bhagat. They attacked British with bow, arrow, and sword because that was the traditional weapon that time. He was the leader of Kola Rebellion, I told, which was in Kola Rebellion was held in 1831 against non-tribals and Jamidaris and taxation of their land and to save their lands. Because the Kola tribal was totally dependent upon the land and they cleaned the forest and started the farming, which was their main sources of livelihood. But when the East India Company came and started the transfer their land to non-tribal, then the Kola Rebellion was held. Then the Kola Rebellion rebelled. This is they fought bravely with their traditional arms like swords, arrow, and very much success to independence their lands. But at last, a huge army from East India Company arrived and success to stop this Kola Rebellion. And Baba Buddhu Bhagat was killed by the East India Company, and this rebellion became a landmark of Indian independence revolutionary in history. And then I come to the Sidhu Murmu and Kanhu Murmu. Both were the leader of Santhal's rebellion in 1855 to 1856 against both the British colonial authority and the corrupt Jamindari. Santhala lived here and depended on the forest. In 1832, the British called from different parts of Santhala tribal to settle in this region, and a large number of Santhala came from different areas and settled here in the Jharkhand. And it was promised them to provide them the land and forest for their livelihood. But soon, many Santhala became victim of corrupt money lending practices and taxation. If they were unable to pay the taxes, then they started to become forcibly bonded laborers. In 1855, the two Santhala rebels leaders, Sidhu Murmu and Kanhu Murmu, both were the brothers, mobilized about 10,000 Santhala and declared a rebellion against the British, and the Santhala initially gained some success, but at last, finally, they were again, what happened. But that was not the last. And this rebellion is still continue with their sisters. Even the Fulo and Jhanu, I cannot forget the two ladies. Two ladies were the sisters of Siddhu and Kanhu, and they took participations in that rebellions. Both were only men. Even जैसा मैंने कहा, I mean फूलो एंड झानो, विदाउट महिलाएं, नारी शक्ति, विदाउट नारी शक्ति हमारा देश जो है आजाद होने की स्थिति में नहीं होता। महिलाओं ने अभूतपूर्व अपना योगदान दिया है। उसी क्रम में द फूलो एंड झानो हु पार्टिसिपेट इन इंडियन रिपब्लिक फ्रॉम झारखंड, and of course I have the rich history of women and freedom fighter, and two of the women who participated in Santhala rebellion. Both were the sisters of Siddhu and Kanhu, and they were in the first Indian women who participated the Santhala rebellion in 1855 to 1856, and against both the British colonial authority and the corrupt Jamindari. They have, the Fulo and Jhano, both the sisters, killed 21 British army by just with their axe, and became a role model of revolution in Indian independence. And that's time when the Fulo Jhano actually took participation on Santhala rebellion. They participate as a communicator, because they communicate their messages. If when the armies came to catch the Siddhu and Kanhu, and they became communicators. But at last they took the arms of axe and they killed 21 British army. And on that day, the Hool Divas celebrated on 30th June, which is the day of revolution. On this day, 1855, where actually why the Hool Divas celebrated? In 1855, almost 50,000 tribal from 400 villages gathered in a place, and this day was the said that the Santhala Rebellion Day, and that still the Hool Divas is celebrated. And of course, in Jharkhand, Fulo Jhano Medical College there. But my story cannot over unless I discuss the Bhagwan Birsa Munda, who is the freedom fighter and the folk hero, belong to the tribal group of Munda people. Birsa Munda, born on 15th November 1875. Birsa Munda was a young freedom fighter and a tribal leader whose spirit of activism in the late 19th century is remembered to be a strong mark of protest against the British rule in India. Born on November 15, 1875, Birsa spent much of his childhood moving from one village to the another with his parents. He belonged to the Munda tribes in Chota Nagpur, Plateau. He received his early education at Salga under the guidance of his teachers Jaipal Naga. On the recommendation of the Jaipal Naga, Birsa converted to Christianity in order to join the German mission schools, but later on, having gained awareness of British colonial rulers and efforts of missionaries to convert tribal to Christianity, Birsa reverted to his original traditional tribal religious system and became part of anti-missionaries and anti-government program that time. Birsa Munda achievements are known to be even more remarkable by virtue of the fact that he came to acquire them before he was 25. In recognition of his impact on the national movement, the state of Jharkhand was created on his birth anniversary in 2000. In later on, our Prime Minister of Mr. Narendra Das Modi ji announced the Adivasi Gaurav Divas on the birth anniversary of Birsa Munda. That time, there is a very famous slogan on the tribals. Birsa Munda told, Abu Raj ete jana, Maharani Raj tunda jana. It means, let the kingdom of Kyun be ended and our kingdom be established. And that is still remembered in the areas of Jharkhand. And Birsa Munda was called Dharti Aba, the father of the earth. So, of course, these are the brave histories of Jharkhand and the Jharkhand, because as I told, I am a tourist guide and you have connected with me. So I am showing you the Dasam Fall in Ranchi. That is very famous fall near the Jharkhand. Come and explore the tourism on this Azadi Amrit Mahotsav. I am exploring the great freedom fighter, and at last, as all the participants just share your understanding. As our speakers told you, at last the 5 questions was shared with you. And are you ready to type below the comments box your answer of your questions, and come first get results? And the first question was, what's the traditional weapon was used by Baba Tilka Manjhi? And many of you, when you come and explore the tourism in Jharkhand, especially on the tribal tourism, you will show especially what the traditional weapon which is still is in used. And of course, and that's weapon, and that's weapon. You can say the bullet is used as a stone chips. So that's the hints from us. So you can answer as quick as you. And the second was, who led the Kola rebellions? As I told, the Kola rebellion is a very important rebellion during Indian independence. And the third was, who led the Santhala rebellion? Santhala, already we discussed 4 heroes of Santhala rebellion. And the fourth was, where is the Fulo Jano Medical College in Jharkhand? Because this is very famous medical college. It's what is established by the government, and the Fulo Jano Medical College is in Jharkhand. And the last, that's the very important. When was Bhagwan Birsa Munda born? And you know, that's the day of Adivasi, I mean tribal Gaurav Divas, when he was born. So I hope you enjoy my my sharing. And at last, I just one thing I share with you: maintain the distancing, use the proper marks, and save yourself from COVID. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Rakesh ji. That was a very wonderful presentation, and thank you for reminding us about the role of women in Indian freedom movement. We really become enriched with your information about the role of Jharkhand, about the people of Jharkhand, women of Jharkhand in our Indian freedom movement. Now, with this, we move on to Orissa. We know Orissa also played a very important role in Indian freedom movement. And from Orissa, Mr. Tapan Kumar Mishra, tourist guide of Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, will be presenting the story from Orissa. He has completed his post-graduation in travel and tourism management from Utkal University. He has rarest achievement of accompanying a single foreign tourist guest from Belgium on road from Orissa to 26 states in India. He has covered approximately 1 lakh kilometers by road in 965 days in the time span of 8 years of his guiding years. He was rewarded by National Tourism Award in the Best Tourist Guide category in the year 2019, being the first person from Orissa. He is an amateur photographer and also been awarded with many prestigious awards, including Lalit Kala Academy. Mr. Mishra has recently started with the innovative project of Heritage on Wheels to show the rich cultural heritage of the temple city of Bhubaneswar to the heritage lover. Today, Mr. Mishra will be showcasing our most beloved and greatest freedom fighter of our country, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, the warrior. Tapanji,
Thank you.
please,
Yeah,
Tapan.
thank you, Bratati ji, for inviting me to deliver my short speech on Netaji. And first of all, I would like to wish wish all the audience on the auspicious occasion of Republic Day, ଗଣତନ୍ତ୍ରର ଗଣତନ୍ତ୍ର ଦିବସର ଶୁଭେଚ୍ଛା ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ମୋର. I would like to quote Netaji. I mean, I would like to speak on Netaji, a very rarest of the rare sort of the soil, you can say. Of course, Odisha is full of freedom fighters, starting from Malki Chaudhary, Rama Devi, and a lot of people within. But the place of Netaji is a very, it plays a dominant role. You know, Netaji has played a dominant role in the freedom struggle of India. So even when we utter the word Delhi chalo, Jai Hind, और मुझे खून दो मैं तुझे आजादी तुम्हें आजादी दूंगा, so it brings unknown vibration in the blood, definitely. The very word, मुझे खून दो, give me blood, I shall give you freedom. You see, the I mean, it brings you a sense of nationality itself. So let me speak very little on Netaji. As you know, he was born in Uriya Bajar, presently called Uriya Bajar. Orissa has been renamed as Orissa. So Uriya Bajar, you can spell it Uriya Bajar, or earlier it was Uriya Bajar in Cuttack. He was born on 23rd January 1897 from Janakinath Bose, his father, the great lawyer of that time, and Prabhavati Bose, Prabhavati Devi, you can call his mother. You know, his father, Janakinath Bose, was a great lawyer, like I told you 2 seconds before, and he was conferred upon the title of Rai Bahadur. Rai Bahadur is a very prestigious a prestigious word. It's a tag with your name, Rai Bahadur Janakinath Bose. Anyway, along with his 14 siblings, Netaji was the ninth child of his parents. He started his early education in Ravenshaw Collegiate School in Cuttack. It's a it's a British school, as you know, and he was top. He had acquired the top position. He had placed in top position in matriculation examination in 1913, and later he was admitted. He had gone to university to Presidency College in Kolkata for his higher education. From 1913 to 1916, he was he was dismissed from the Presidency College. No, let me go to the slides first. This is the birthplace of Netaji in Cuttack, Uriya Bajar, Cuttack, which has been converted into now converted into a museum. Very beautiful museum one here. And the next one I can show you. This is the building of Netaji Museum and his birthplace as well. This is his first, childhood photographs in front of you with his family members. All of his family members are here. So this is, I was talking about the Ravenshaw Collegiate School, his primary education, his early education was here in Cuttack. Later, he was in Presidency College, Calcutta. He was expelled. He was dismissed from the class in 1916. Because of fighting with his professor. Not exactly fighting. He raised his objection against anti-India statement of his British professor. That's why he had to quit the college. He was expelled from this education, dismissed from this college. And later, he had gone to University of Cambridge with the advice of his father to go to prepare for Indian civil service. Before that, I may tell you the minimum. The name Subhash Chandra Bose or Netaji we utter. We imagine of a violent freedom fighter, image of a violent freedom fighter in front of me. But he was very spiritual too. He was he was influenced by Swami Vivekananda and Ramakrishna Paramahansa. So anyway, with the advice of his father, he had been to Cambridge University to prepare for Indian civil service in 1920, and naturally it takes 3 to 4 years to prepare for Indian civil service. But you'll be surprised to know he completed his Indian civil service in just 7 months, and he was fourth. He had fourth position in the Indian civil service there in London, and but it was not for a long time. With the turmoil of national movement in India, with the call of Mahatma Gandhi, once he heard of the freedom struggle for freedom started in India, particularly the non-cooperation movement, he had to quit Indian civil service job in 1921. And he came back to India. So it was under Chittaranjan Das. That's when Chittaranjan Das. He worked for Indian National Congress. He worked for the national movement. So it is said that that's when Chittaranjan Das was his political guru. Then Bose became the General Secretary of Indian National Congress later on. He was the mayor there in Calcutta. In 1938, he became the president of Indian National Congress, which is very short span of time, he became president of Indian National Congress. And during his presidency, he had set up a planning committee. No, the planning committee was there, which formulated an industrial policy. Netaji was very serious to find out a way for industrialization and for betterment of Indian economy. So it was his brainchild. The planning committee was the brainchild of Netaji to bring industrial policy in India. In 1939, he was again re-elected. He was again re-elected as president of Indian National Congress, but it was not for a long time because of faction, because of opposition. I can tell you frankly from Gandhi team. He didn't continue for a long time, even if he had defeated. But V. Sitaramaya, a candidate from Mahatma Gandhi, with a margin of 300 votes even. So even Gandhiji was very popular. Netaji was not far behind him even. मैं एक कह सकता हूँ उसमें मतभेद था दोनों में, गांधी जी और नेताजी में मतभेद था, बट मन का भेद नहीं था. But during his second presidency in 1939, because of internal problem, you can say a small fraction was there. He had to quit presidency because it was told to him that if you do not quit as president of Indian National Congress, lot of executive members will quit. And Netaji didn't want the executive committee members to quit Indian National Congress. Rather, he decided to quit presidency of Indian National Congress. That is the reason he formed a leftist wing of Indian National Congress called Forward Bloc. So the faction was in 1939 because of internal problems in Indian National Congress. There is formed a Forward Bloc, a leftist wing, as I have told you. Then the Forward Bloc started. The mission was same. Maybe because Gandhiji, there was some philosophical, ideological difference definitely, but the goal was same. Maybe Gandhiji or maybe Netaji, the goal was to get complete freedom for the country. When British government offered dominion status to India, it was Netaji who completely denied that we do not want any dominion status. We want complete Swaraj, Sampurn Swarajya. So he was, fighting front to front with the British government only for freedom struggle, even only for complete freedom, I mean. So the then British government was in trouble, was in big problem to convince Netaji to offer this dominion status to government of India, to Indian people, I mean. So it was Rasbihari Bose who escaped from India, and he was staying in Japan for a long time, who formed Indian Independent League. It was Rasbihari Bose who formed Indian Independent League with supporters of prisoners of war. There were a lot of prisoners of war, POWs in Berlin, even in Japan and in Singapore. A lot of prisoners of war were there. So it was Rasbihari Bose, with the help of some prisoners of war, formed Indian National League. And later, Mohan Singh, the then commander of British Indian Army, took the leadership of Indian National Army and gave it a complete form as Indian National Army or Azadi Hind Fauj. Azadi Hind Fauj had 45,000 soldiers in total. And you will be surprised to know out of 45,000 of soldiers, Indian prisoners of war, around 26,000 prisoners of war and soldiers of Indian National Army were killed. So from this you can imagine what was the dedication, what was the contribution of Indian National Army towards getting the complete freedom and freedom of India. So when we speak of we have got the freedom bina khad bina dhal. It's my personal opinion. We have not got it, the freedom bina khad or bina dhal. We had to struggle a lot, and it was the prime contribution of Netaji. Made the radio Berlin, made the radio in Singapore, made in many Indian languages including Kannada, Telugu, Gujarati. He had inspired, he was inspiring lots of Indians all over the globe, particularly in South Asian countries, and he was inspiring them to fight for the struggle for the freedom of India. So you see, starting from Berlin radio to Singapore radio, all over, Netaji was fighting, he was trying his best, traveling to different parts of Europe and South Asian countries, how to get complete freedom. I mean, he was the only leader, and with his higher intelligence and leaders and contact with world leaders, including Hitler. He was trying his best how to get help from Japan, from Nazis, I mean from Nazi Germany, to get freedom, for India as quick as possible. It was his mission. शत्रु का शत्रु दोस्त होता है, मित्र होता है हमारा. So since Italy and Germany was against Britain, Netaji had decided to take the help of Italy and Germany to get his dreams come true. So anyway, it's a really long story to talk on. Finally, Subhash Chandra Bose escaped from India in 1941. No, let me go to slides, please. Just to remind you, this is the picture after getting re-elected as president of Indian National Congress in 1939, and this is with some of the officials of Indian National Army. Azadi Fauj was a very strong contingent, fighting with a lot of people in Northeast, fighting with the British government in northeastern states, in Kohima, in Pal, and all this. On 4th April 1944, so it is 4/4/1944, this army, Indian National Army, was in Kohima, and they had their footsteps in Imphal also, Yangon also. So it was a huge army consisting of 45,000 soldiers. They were trying their best to get it done by tit for tat philosophy. The ideology was tit for tat. He was not a soft-hearted person. Netaji was just in opposition of Mahatma Gandhi. He was giving his freedom to get as quick as possible by the method of tit for tat. Anyway, it was in 1941 when Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose escaped from India to Germany. Before that, I can talk on this photography. This is the woman wing of his Azadi Fauj, which is called as Rani Lakshmibai Regiment also. You see, at that time he was able to convince the ladies wing, the ladies who were as part of his Indian National Army wing. So this is with Hitler, you see. After escaping from India in 1941, it was in 1943, it was in May 1942, he met Hitler. And it was a long time he had to wait to meet Hitler. You know the story. How many Hitlers, the real Hitler had kept many look-alike Hitlers. So when Netaji was in Germany to meet Hitler near his door, a look-alike Hitler came and extended his hand to shake hand with Netaji, and Netaji didn't respond. Netaji was so intelligent, he got it immediately that he was not the real Hitler. It happened against, it was repeated against for the second time. Another second look-alike Hitler came near to Netaji and extended his hand for shaking his hand. And Netaji didn't respond to him. And it was the real Hitler who came finally. As you know, there was a threat to the life of Hitler. That's the reason why Hitler had kept many look-alikes. And it was the real Hitler Netaji identified. From this, I would like to tell how intelligent was Netaji to identify who was real Hitler. And finally, he asked Hitler to help how to get freedom in India. And Hitler had handed over 4,000 Indian prisoners, 7 prisoners of war to Netaji. And Finally, in 1943, Netaji went to Singapore. With the help of Hitler, had arranged submarine to come from Germany to Singapore. Hitler had arranged a submarine for Netaji. You know, Netaji was the first civilian to get submarines from two countries, two powerful nations, one from Germany and another one from Japan. So he was transported to Japan with the help of Hitler, to first submarine from Germany and the second one from Japan. And finally, he went to Singapore and rebuilt Indian National Army, Azadi Ka Amrit, like I was telling you, with a huge capacity of 45,000 of prisoners of war. So he formed it in 21st October 1943 in Singapore. And I go to the picture. His wife, Imai. This was his car through which he had escaped from India with the burqas, to go to Germany. And finally, he was in Singapore, and in early 1944, he occupied, in early 1944, Indian National Army occupied some parts of northeastern states, but it was not for a long time, as you know. The mission of occupying northeastern states was failed. They were not successful. But Netaji had unfolded the flag, first independent flag, you say, in Andaman and Nicobar in 1943. And finally, this was the journey actually to this mysterious date. I would not like to focus on that. It has been a mystery since long time. During his flight from Japan to Taiwan, to Singapore, flight had crashed in Taiwan, it is believed, in 1845, 18 August 1845. Sorry, 1945 it was. So, which has been in mystery. A lot of commissions had been established in India. So, starting from Sahan's commission to Khoshla commission to Mukherjee commission, all have been, we have a lot of commissions, but there is no conclusion till now what happened to Netaji. So that has been in mystery. I would not like to enter into that mystery because mystery is always a mystery. Anyway, I hope with a short span of time, I have covered a little part of Netaji's life, such a vibrant leader. And after going through this small discussion, I have some questions. As you know, we have some rules and regulations for the audience. You have to be an Indian to answer all these questions residing in India. So this is decided again on fastest finger first. So those who will answer correctly first in the comment box, they are going to win some gift vouchers and some prizes. I mean, from Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, from Regional Office, Regional Director of India Tourism, Kolkata. So please get ready for the questions. Here is the first question. Name the exact birthplace of Netaji in Cuttack. No doubt Netaji was born in Cuttack, but the name of the exact place is there. So you have to tell what is the exact name of that place where Netaji was born in Cuttack. My second question is, how many siblings were there of Netaji? No, it was a big family, definitely. So you have to tell me how many siblings were there of Netaji. My third question is, Netaji was married to, you have to tell me the name of his wife. And the fourth question is, Netaji was re-elected as President of Indian National Congress in the year. You have to tell me the year. So Netaji was elected as President twice. You have to tell me the re-election was held in the year. He was re-elected as President of Indian National Congress in the year. You have to tell me the year. And last but not the least, even mention the year Netaji did quit Indian civil service job. As you know, he was in He was he was sent to Europe by his father after being expelled from Presidency College in Kolkata. He went to Cambridge University to prepare for Indian service, civil service, and he was successful in getting that job also, and he quit that job in the year. So you have to mention the year. I think you have answered already. Minister of Tourism will be in touch with you shortly for your correct answers for the winning participants and for the winners. They will be in touch with the winners' result. Thank you once again. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Tapan Mishra ji. It was a wonderful presentation and taking us through our all-time favorite, our beloved greatest freedom fighter of the country, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Before we move on to the next section, which is the last part of our program, I'm pretty sure many of you have already answered and won the prize, but those who have not yet entered into the quiz, there is a last chance for all of you again. So after the presentation, there will be again 5 questions from the presentation, which our notable speaker will be presenting now. And you need to be get ready with your mobile, with your laptop or the desktop. Please log on to the Facebook or the YouTube channel, and then you can just comment over there. So let's welcome our next speaker. Bengal played a pivotal role in Indian freedom movement. In Bengal, from writer to fighter, and from men to women, everyone had given everything for freedom. Today, Mr. Suvendu Mukherjee will talk about some important chapters of Indian freedom movement in Bengal. Mr. Suvendu Mukherjee is a regional level tour guide approved by Government of India Ministry of Tourism for last 31 years. He led many special interest tours like cultural, anthropological, textile and craft tours, and even the work tours, photography tours, and many more. A graduate from Calcutta University and an avid student of life, experience made him inquisitive to textile and craft tour, and opportunities made him a cruise tour specialist. And his passion made him a keen learner of photography tour. He has worked for Endeavour Tours, Incentive Tours, Saga Translators, and many more companies. He is a trip leader of Overseas Adventure Travel, cruise guide for Assam Bengal Navigation Company, and Pandava Cruise. So today we are welcoming Mr. Suvendu Mukherjee for his presentation. Suvendu, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bratati, for this lovely introduction. Thank you, my lovely audience, for waiting so patiently for the last speaker. I respect the day, I respect your patience, I respect your time. So I hopefully I'll complete my presentation in a due course of the time. So without wasting time, I am going directly to my presentation. It is mostly based on the Quit India movement of India and the role of Bengal as an independent government. Yes, that small independent government has been formed in Tomluk, which is called the Tamrolipto Jatiyo Sarkar, based on the revolution that started there by Mahatma Gandhi in the Gwalior Maidan. This day is, to me, is very, very special, and to all other Indians, because technically this day is the day that India became independent from the British. So Mahatma Gandhi said that we want nothing less than full independence from here. He had sent another message about his way of life, his direction towards this movement, and that was, I believe, in his speech, I believe that India will launch a non-violent struggle, even if they deviate from this path. I will not swerve, I will not flinch. That was his own way of thinking, of leading, and also giving the tone and the mood of the movement, the Quit India movement. This was India's last struggle for freedom as well. We are looking back a little bit, going to that sections. That's what leads him to address that huge amount of Indian people to the struggle for freedom. War started, World War II, 1st September 1939. Lord Linlithgow was the Viceroy of British India on that time in India. And his intention was taking the help of India. So with that intention, he engaged India with a war effort of the British. And that made this country as a belligerent country, and also bring the emergency area in India, and that caused the fall of the provincial government that has been formulated in 1935 and started working in 1937. That's made the Indian National Congress leaders very, very angry, and also the Indian people as well. Without informing them, he brought India to the war effort of Britain. So these aggravated the situations, and Mahatma Gandhi went for Satyagraha, his individual Satyagraha, however, with small group of people. And then in that theater, in that stage comes Stafford Cripps, the lawyer and wartime cabinet minister from England, with a proposal of giving independence to India, give the dominion status to India after the war. So he also seeking the help of India in case of the war effort of England. He was also a representative of Winston Churchill to talk to the Indian politicians, a friend of Nehru. Interestingly enough, Nehru had many top official European friends. It's good, but not so good for the country of India. The Mahatma Gandhi turned down these proposals, and he turned down these proposals because India wants the independence now, full exchange of power, and also the full independence, nothing less than that. And that leads him to 1942 Quit India ground after the resolution has been taken by Indian National Congress in Bombay on 7th of August. On 8th August, he is addressing a huge group of people and take the vow to get the independence, fight back against the British. But the next day, on 9th of August, all the leaders have been rose from their bed and been arrested, and they remain in the jail for next 3 years until the World War II finished. A lone lady, a member of the Congress Working Committee, went there to the Gwalior ground and once again hoisted the Indian national flag. Her name was Aruna Ganguly, by marriage Aruna Asaf Ali. That initiated the big movement of Quit India in the whole country. It moved from Pune, Ahmedabad, Bihar, Bengal, Central Province, United Province, Madras, all these places, and Delhi. As a concerted movement started all over the country, but within 2 weeks of time, after ruthless oppression, British suppressed these revolution in other parts of India, except 3: Satara in Maharashtra, Talcher in Orissa, and Medinipur in West Bengal. And here starts the story of the Tamluk and the Tamralipta Jatiya Sarkar. It was a danger zone for the British. Why? Because the coastal area and exposed to the Japanese attack. Japanese are advancing very, very fast towards Burma, Bengal, and there was an attack on Pearl Harbor. And also there was a fall of Singapore, and they are advancing towards Bay of Bengal, and this open coastal area of Medinipur is a possible hit by the Japanese. And the area, the people are Bengalis, quite soft to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. All these make it very risk-prone zone, and they made a denial process here. What is the denial process? The governor, the district magistrate ordered capturing and capsized all the boats in there. Within 3 hours of time, those boats need to be placed 70 to 90 miles away, lest they fall in the hand of the Japanese. You can understand, the rowing boat cannot go there in 3 hours of time. So boats have been destroyed, burnt, sunk, and people lost their livelihood. They are mostly fishermen. They also need the boat to go to sell their products, so they became helpless. It's not all. All the bicycles need to be seized. So all the thanas, Tamlu, Kontai, Nandigram, Mahishadal, Sutahata, and Moyna in the area of Purva Mednipur is denuded of any bicycles or any transport. The bus has been stopped and no relief, no help could reach that area because that's an area of emergency. These British atrocities, oppressiveness, made the provincial Congress leaders to meet in a secret meeting. They have decided a day of direct action. So this direct action was in contraventions with the Mahatma Gandhi's way of thought of nonviolence movement. In this direct action, they have planned to storm 6 thanas, police stations, with a huge mass of people. The history repeats again and again, but this is the first time happened. The roads were roads were blocked with a huge log of wood on 28th of September. Culverts were broken, 30 kilometers of telegraph and telephone line being uprooted, and they made all the arrangements that the replenishment of arms and weapons and also the rescue people cannot reach to in between the thanas. On 29th, a concerted movement started early in the morning to attack all these police stations. There's a huge group of people, 6,000 of them, rallied round behind an old lady of Tomluk Thana. She was fondly called as Gandhi Buri, or more known as Matongini Hajra. She was leading this group, charging towards Tomluk Thana. Just immediately after her followed 3 young students from the school of local Gaur Mohan institutions. They were Upendranath Jana, they were Ashok Kulia, and they were Pulimadhov Pramanik. Matongini Hajra marched forward way ahead of the group and then entered into the zone which is called 144. She was warned, and then a flurry of bullets hits her. She falls. But she didn't leave the tricolor flag from her hand. That's been picked up by one of the students, and he got the shot, and he died immediately on the spot. His friend as well died on the spot, and one of them get arrested, wounded, and later died. 3 young persons, the youngest 14 and the oldest 73 years old, Matongini Hajra, died on the same action. In 7 days' time, they have burnt 12 thanas, 12 police stations, 11 panchayat office, many of the government offices, uprooted the telegraph offices, and 4 dak bungalows, and 12 such loyal people residences. Yes, British didn't stop looking at this fun. They would like to take the action. The retaliation came in a brutal way, and the natural calamity has aggrieved the situation. So the natural calamity was a cyclone on 16th of October 1942. It was a devastating cyclone. People lost their life, boats, once again, cattle, everything. When this was happening, then British people thought that this is the time to give them a lesson. In which way? They sprinkle kerosene on the thatched roof of the mud houses, lock the people inside, and then throw the fire in there. 15,000 people, 70% of the cattle, all died in that action. Looking at the atrocities, oppressiveness of the British, the local group of people, the Provincial Council of Congress, decided to form a separate body, an independent government in there. And this is the beginning of Tomluk Jatiyo Sarkar. Sarvadhinak of Tomluk Jatiyo Sarkar was Satish Chandra Samanto. He has been chosen, not elected. Election was not possible on that time. So they have consulted the provincial congress that's what to do about formation of this group. And he get his teammates, whose name was Sushil Chandra Dhara and Ajay Mukherjee. This trio made an independent body of the government. There are some volunteer groups have been formed as a structure of this government who will look after the action areas. So this group is called Vidyut Bahini. It's a Vidyut Bahini or lightning army. The sisters group, which is called Bhogini Bahini or Bhogini Sena Shivir, sisters group, has been formed. A guerrilla war group has been formed, what is called Gorom Dal. And another group which is called Bondi Bahini. This Bondi Bahini's work was taking the people in the custody to the court. They have made several courts, and 10 different departments have been engaged in under their government. Finance department, war departments were the two most important departments under this government. Finance department looked after by Ajay Mukherjee, war department by Sushil Dhara. Sushil Dhara mostly trained these volunteer groups and the militant groups. The work of all these groups have been, duties of all these groups has been allotted, like the group or the ladies group will do the nursing, they will do the awareness campaign and give the training to the ladies how they can defend themselves. They realize there would be the retaliations to the ladies who are helpless. So they have given a kind of training there that they can bring whatever household weapons they have in their hand, and they can gather in one place and they can attack someone before someone touching their body. So these was the sisters Bahini or the Nari Bahini, that's the Bhogini Bahini who had given that training. These different governments, different departments of the government have different work to do. Like the publication department, they started publishing their newsletters, which is called Biplobi. Biplobi has been stormed, destroyed. Their press have been dismantled by the police number of times. They realize this is going to happen. So they have made the editors in different areas scattered around in the district. And different editors took up their job in different time of the situations, according to the situations. So this gives a kind of very planned movement, running a government within the British, within the time when India was under the British. It's an independent body. It's running their work in their own way, which was a unique idea to propagate. So these three people remain instrumental for this action. And this is the newsletter, Biplobi, that used to give the idea of all the, sorry, give the idea and encouragement to the people that they can fight back against the British. Then comes one of the natural calamity and one of the dreaded horrendous event that came to Bengal. That was a famine on Bengal in 1943. First of all, the British government tried to suppress the news coming out from there. They said that there is no famine. Especially the Winston Churchill was like a hater of India. And anything happened in India, he denied that one. And he said that there is enough food there. It's just a kind of malice nature of the Indians that's making Britain as one of the accused person. So it is not really happening in there. The newspapers have been banned and they're censored there. 3.5 million people died in that incident. There were many reasons behind that, but most of the analysts, economists, they have given the idea because of hoarding of food, and the food prices were high and the purchase power was low. Inflation was high due to war situation. People couldn't have this food. There was enough production, but not enough rotations or the supply. There is a hoarding of food or the rice by the black marketeers, and also in the panic of this, there are lots of other people, rich people, they hoard lots of food for themselves. On the top of that, there's a fall of Burma, which used to provide some kinds of rice to the India that's been stopped, and huge number of refugees came from Burma, and at the same time, there are 700 of airstrip developed in different areas of Bengal and India that also demolished, that also destructed all these farmland. It was Lord Linlithgow once again, didn't do anything about the famine. And only something started happening when the Viceroy, Lord Wavell, took the charge from him. Within 2 weeks' time, he solved the problem by bringing the military and the supply of the food in this area. He fly the Royal Army flights in different areas, remote areas, for the airdropping, and that helped to bring down the death in these areas. In December of that year, there was a bumper crop that's also helped in a big way to solve the situation of famine in Bengal. When the news reached to Winston Churchill, he said, if the famine is so horrible, why Gandhi hadn't yet died of starvation? It was so humiliating. It was so racist remarks done by Winston Churchill that's made him one of the biggest enemy in the England for India. Once again, Lord Wavell wanted to import some food for the famine attacked area, famine invested area. But Winston Churchill once again said, it is not important to send the ship for bringing food or carrying food. It is more important to bring ammunitions and the soldiers from one part to another. We cannot spare the boat for the food. Think about this. Think about the situation. The human life is less than the life or the span of a bullet. So when the situation was like that, people tried to reach there to solve the situation. The relief came, and the newspapers, who had been censored before, they come out in a big way. And it was a stunning, a horrible news for the whole world. What's happening in other part of the world during the time of the war. So this movement and this independent government ran for quite some time till 1944, till the time Mahatma Gandhi called it off. So Mahatma Gandhi called the Quit India movement off, looking at that British force or the Allied force is gaining power against the Axis power. And there are more chances that could be victorious, and then they can lead to them. These brave soldiers of India, these brave soldiers of the Tomluk, which used to be one of the ancient trading center and the port during the time of King Ashoka, a Buddhist pilgrimage center once upon a time, is a nice place nowadays, having a nice beach and having a nice tourist place for the people to visit, especially the leisure tourism. So this is the Tomluk Jatiyo Sarkar Memorial, where they are keeping some of the documents of that time. The statues of the people are here. That's one of the place. That's where what you can visit in your journey. That's if you are visiting this place. And to respect the people of Medinipur, they respect the innumerable number of freedom fighters are from there. I should take some of the names. Like the Khudiram Bose was the student of the local Hamilton school. The other two alumni from there, Ajay Mukherjee and Sushil Chandra Dhara, remain closely attached with this movement. And Sushil Chandra Dhara was the living connections to the Quit India movement, died in 2011 in the month of January. He was very narrowly missed, a century in the March, just 2 months away. It was a great fight by the Indians, and people will remember them forever. All these freedom fighters sacrificed their future for our today. It is our duty to give respect to them, give respect to their actions, what they have done. And when we do this, then we can respect to their glorious death. That's the message I think that every Indian is looking for. And from here onwards, I am going towards the question and answer portion. I think is the most interesting portions that you are looking forward to. And here comes your first question. Please be along with your pen and paper. Name the Volunteer Women Brigade founded under Tomluk Jatiyo Sarkar. Question, I repeat again. Name the Volunteer Women Brigade founded under Tomluk Jatiyo Sarkar. I hope that you got the answer. So from here, I'm going to the next question. Who was called Gandhi Buri? Who was called Gandhi Buri? In which year Sushil Kumar Dhara was born? This is a tricky question. I have given indication only. In which year Sushil Kumar Dhara was born? You need to do a little bit of mathematics. Who were the British viceroys of India during famine of Bengal, 1943-44? Just give a clue. There are two viceroys involved in that period of time. Who were the British viceroys of India during famine of Bengal, 1943-44? The screen is in front of you. First finger first, and whoever gives the answer first will get some prize. I don't know what. So get ready for the next question. I hope that you could read and could answer. Going to the next one. Next one is the trickiest of the lot. When, which year India truly became an independent country? Think about it. It is very tricky question, but I have given enough indication during my speech. When, which year India truly became an independent country? I'm not talking about the Independence Day of the country. India truly became an independent country. Thank you everybody for your patience. Thank you. Jai Hind. Vande Mataram.
Thank you, Suvendu, for a fiery presentation to enlighten us with so many information of Bengal freedom fight movement. Such a wonderful stories. We all actually experienced a very nice Republic Day evening today and getting the goosebumps. You all took us back to the centuries, making those characters alive in front of us. I'm sure, like me, it has flourished everyone with new stories, information, and a feeling of patriotism. Thank you all for the wonderful presentation, and you have read through the centuries of history of Indian freedom movement. It is all about their sacrifice that we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav on the occasion of Republic Day today. Today, our country has come a long way since independence, with a lot of achievements in science, technology, art, and development. And now it is the responsibility to us, or rather, the responsibility lies with our new generation, all the students who all are watching this webinar today. We are pretty sure that you will take India to a new height. I want to thank everyone who made this webinar successful, our own ministry, the publicity team, the technical team, all the speakers, and most importantly, our viewers. Wishing you a very happy Republic Day along with a National Tourism Day from Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, Eastern Region once again. Please follow, subscribe, and press the bell icon of our YouTube channel. We all are hoping that you are wearing the mask, keeping the safe distance, and getting vaccinated. Stay safe, stay healthy. Jai Hind.